Hey guys, it's Faye from Solar Flow, and I am back with an all-new video. Today's topic is a deep dive behind the veil psychic energy read into France's last queen, Marie Antoinette. So we are going to be exploring what she really thought about her husband, Louis, what she thinks about history as a whole, and if she in fact really said about the French people, let them eat cake. This and so much more. Now, before we get into the psychic energy reading on Miss Marie, we are first going to begin exploring some three-dimensional information into who she was. Now, this is not because I don't think anyone knows who Marie Antoinette was, but I think it's going to give a really good foundation and background into some of the things that had come into the energy reading portion on her. So here we go. Marie Antoinette, who was born Maria Antonio Josepha Johanna on November 2nd, 1755, and who was beheaded on October 16th, 1793, was the last queen of France before the French Revolution. Born Archduchess Maria Antonia of Austria to Empress Maria Theresa and Emperor Francis I, who was also the Holy Roman Emperor, Marie Antoinette had some serious pedigree. She was married to the Dauphin of France in May 1770 at the age of 14, and in 1774, her husband ascended to the throne and she became queen at only the tender age of 18. Now, in her childhood, it has been said about her that she did not excel as a student, but was a good musician and had a beautiful voice. It has also been said about her that she was a bit flighty, lazy and frivolous, but was complimented on her heart and her character, as she was beautiful and well liked. As queen, she was known for her extravagant gowns, her wild hairstyles that rose up to 3 feet in the air, and she presided over one of the most fashionable courts in history. However, this was happening concurrently while the country was facing a grave financial crisis and the population was suffering, and many French people blamed her for the country's dire economic situation. Now, she was also the constant target of criticism during the French Revolution, and she was called Madame Deficit, but imagine that in a French accent because it'll sound a lot better, because of the country's financial crisis was blamed on her lavish spending. On September 21st, 1792, France was declared a republic and the monarchy was abolished. Her husband, the King Louis, was executed in January 1793, and in October 1793, Marie was found guilty of high treason, and she herself was executed by beheading. Now, this is going to conclude the three-dimensional information share on Marie Antoinette, and we are now going to be getting into the energy reading on her. Now, before I start the energy reading into Miss Marie, If you have not yet clicked the like button, I'm going to ask you to please do so. And if you are new to my channel and you enjoy this kind of content, where we peel back the three-dimensional veil in exploring historical figures, celebrities, celebrity relationships, I invite you to please subscribe. Now, as soon as I had connected to Marie's energy, she came in a physical representation of how she had dressed at that time. So essentially, in full regalia. She had a tall white wig, a white powdered face, a large gown with petticoats, and a tight corset that accentuated her breasts. But what was interesting about the way that she chose to come into me was that it was not with any sense of attachment. It was not even to come in as a representation of a queen so that I would be put off balance energetically because, oh, behold, I was faced before the magnificent Marie Antoinette. No. The reason she chose to come in representing herself as queen and as Marie Antoinette in the full royal regalia in which she was known for was in fact because she could not speak to me, and therefore she feared, if not for her having the ability to verbally, on an energetic level, communicate with me, she feared in fact I would have not recognized her. So she didn't come in with a sense of ego, as in, behold, I am Queen Marie Antoinette, but it was more, without my voice, how will you ever know who I am? So let me come in a way in which you'll know who I was. But again, she did not speak to me. And this was in fact because she could not speak. And she kept touching her neck with one of her hands, just like this. And she was opening and closing her mouth like a fish. And while she was touching her neck with one of her hands, she also shook her head to indicate she could not speak. Now, this is not entirely uncommon to me, as I have connected to the energy of other people in the past that had suffered some sort of a physical trauma in their most recent lifetime, and it was so traumatic for them, in fact, that it left an indelible impression on their soul. So much so to the extent that it's a trauma that energetically has been carried with them into the afterlife. Now, this is certainly the case with Marie Antoinette, because she was beheaded in her most recent lifetime when she had the name Marie Antoinette. Her soul remembers it, and it's, if you will, an energetic disempowerment in her understanding of the way that her soul, in fact, could communicate. So when she had indicated to me she couldn't speak, I tapped on my mind to indicate to her, we don't need to speak the way, for example, I'm speaking to you, the viewer. Because when it's done on an energetic level, there actually is no verbal communication. Every communication that happens on an energetic level is in fact through mental telepathy. So when I'm connecting to the energy of a person who has crossed over, there's no words that are exchanged. All of the communication is mentally, telepathically exchanged between me and that soul. However, Marie's soul suffered a severe trauma by being beheaded, and it has altered her understanding in the way that a medium such as myself can communicate with her on the other side. So it more felt like me, by tapping my mind and telling her we can actually communicate telepathically, was more of me giving her permission to share with me the things that she wanted to say. And what did she want to say to me? Well, before I get to the what, let me just start by sharing with you. she was extremely relieved to know there was another way in which she could be heard. Again, this is an indication of the trauma that her soul has carried over into the afterlife, in which she fears she does not have the ability to be heard. So essentially, she feels as if by being beheaded, her voice has been robbed of her. And then her words tumble out, like she has had them cooped up and stuck inside of herself for so long that she could not wait to get them out. But also, as an energy reader, the very advanced pace in which the words came tumbling out of her felt like there's a fear that if she doesn't get all of the words out, she will again lose her ability to communicate. So she mentally tells me she did not understand just how unstable and precarious the country as well as the monarchy was. She also shared with me that she did not think Louis, the King of France at that time, had realized it either. Not because either of them were stupid, no. Naive, maybe. Young, certainly. But also, really, as a monarch, these things just don't seem real or within the realm of possibility. Because surely the country was stable. Surely they were safe in a castle, and surely they were safe away from the commoners that might wish them harm. But she realizes now there was so much she did not know nor understand in that life and in that time. So now that she is on the other side, she has spent that time trying to learn. And if this is the first you are hearing, that once you are out of your body and you're on the other side, you can learn, I'm going to share with you what I have explained in some of my other content, which I've also shared down below if you'd like to check it out. But essentially, once we are out of our body and we're pure energy, on the other side, as in the spirit realm, it's kind of a bit like an afterlife bazaar. So it's a bit, if you will, of a flea market. It's an afterlife spiritual flea market. And there's different booths and stations and vendors, except on the other side, they're not trying to sell us things. They're giving us the opportunity to have different post-mortem experiences. So one such booth that a soul can go to once they're out of their body would be to see their life, but through the lens of it being a movie and without having any emotional attachment to their lifetime. Another booth that they can go to would be to learn about their soul contracts, their soul lessons, what they signed up for to experience in that lifetime, what they agreed to go through vis-a-vis another person in that lifetime. They can also learn all of the mysteries of the universe. They can kick it with God. They can get healed by God. They can have a reunion with other family members. So it's a bit of a afterlife spiritual bazaar. So when Marie Antoinette shared with me that since she has been on the other side, she has spent the majority of her time trying to learn, it's in fact because it's what she's been doing. She has spent time going around to all of the various different bazaars and learning both about herself, but also about life in general. Because once she had crossed out of her body through rather dramatic means by beheading, she had taken a good look around at her life as Marie to see what were her blinders, what she did not know, and how she could have gotten things so very wrong. And it turned out she, in fact, had a lot of blinders. And then after learning about her soul's naivete and what she did not know in that lifetime, she spent time healing with God, learning about her soul contracts, her soul lessons, what she agreed to experience in this lifetime as Marie, as well as falling in love with Louis all over again. This is because on the other side, she had had an opportunity to see through her soul contracts and her soul lessons that she and Louis had had many, many previous lifetimes together, and how tender and sweet Louis had been with her in those other previous lifetimes, but also how tender and sweet they had been together. And then with this understanding that they had had many previous lifetimes together in the past, came an even deeper understanding that this had been her choice. Not just her choice, but her choice along with Louis, because soul to soul, they had both agreed to come back together and to have this life together again, where her name would be Marie and his name would be Louis. But it was with the potential of this lifetime being cut short, and that there was further potential for this lifetime to end rather dramatically. But knowing that in advance, as in knowing before they agreed to come back and have this lifetime together again, knowing that it could end short and dramatically, they were still given the choice. Would they want it? And because, as I have shared with you guys, we are all the cosmic creator and scriptwriter of the experiences we have in our lifetimes, both her and Louis's soul had gazed into one another's souls. They had clasped their metaphorical hands, and they had both unequivocally decided, yes, they wanted this lifetime together, even knowing how it could potentially end. And from Marie's point of view, it was worth it. And she is glad that they had this lifetime together, despite the dramatic way in which the life ended for them, because Louis's soul has moved on from the earth plane. His soul has gone on to do other things and in other places, and therefore they do not have the potential to come back into another lifetime together. So this was really the last lifetime that these two souls would have on the earth plane together. The only way for them to be together again would be for Marie's soul to leave the earth plane and to go on to wherever it is in the universe that Louis's soul is, and to have some sort of an experience with him there. Because his soul pieced the fuck out after he had crossed out of his body as Louis. So at least they had this last lifetime together. So she asked me rhetorically, so what if history does not remember them kindly? History does not always get its reporting right. That she can say for sure. She knows it because she has been hanging around the earthly domain for hundreds of years since she crossed out of her body in that lifetime where she was Marie Antoinette. And even though she concedes she is still learning, she assures me she has seen a thing or two. She has observed how history is not always true, and it is not always an accurate representation of events. So then I ask her if it's true. Did she in fact really say, "Let them eat cake"? And she huffed at that and again said she was young and naive, but she was not stupid. And she was certainly not callous nor cross enough to utter such words at people's suffering. So perhaps, she offers as an alternative explanation, history has chosen to remember her that way, to make her look bad or to justify what was done to them, as in what was done to her and Louis. Because they were babies, barely no longer children themselves. So history is not always kind, and it can sometimes in fact be cruel. But that's also in fact because throughout man's evolution, we in fact have the capacity to be not so kind and certainly very cruel. So since we're talking about history not always being kind and it having in fact the ability to be cruel, I ask her if outside of herself, being on the other side, and with her in fact saying she has seen a thing or two, if she has any examples of times in which history was cruel, or was not kind, or in fact incorrect. And she said to me, just open any page in any history book and I can see for myself. Which is kind of ominous. And it's ominous because she doesn't say, when I open up any page in a history book, what will I be seeing? Will I be seeing an example of history either being cruel, not kind, or in fact incorrect in the reporting of it? So ominous as it is, it feels like a perfect time to disconnect from her energy, so I do. That is going to conclude the energy reading into Marie Antoinette. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this reading, perhaps found it to be insightful or thought-provoking. I remind you to please take what resonates, leave the rest behind, and until next time, this is your reminder to stay in the high vibration.